I've often made videos here on Spector Creative looking at what makes a certain character a superhero or a supervillain toyetic, meaning they can capture the hearts and minds of kids but also be translated easily into toy product that it's going to sell. And a lot of times this comes down to the inherent DNA of the franchise or the character, meaning they have certain qualities that translate not only to toy product, but make them aspirational to kids. And I've talked about how Batman is one of the best at this. And, I mean, for people asking why this is, well, I mean, the answer is pretty obvious, right? Okay, well, it's, because Batman wears a hood, and he basically stalks the night, and, well...
Get those wonderful toys.
Yeah, he's got the best stuff. I mean, that's a big part of it, is Batman is a gadget guy. He has tools on him to swing, to throw, to stop enemies. He's also got a whole fleet of vehicles for every possible environment, and it's something that kids can very much relate to because, kids like vehicles. They represent something larger than themselves. But essentially, Batman comes down to the fact that he is an attainable goal superhero, probably told best in the very first Batman comic book, where his origin is told in one page. And if you follow the panels, you literally can go from, well, tragedy to learning, to training, to dedicating yourself to becoming Batman. In other words, it's something that if you really put your mind to it and you work on, your education and your physical prowess and, well, I guess you're a multi-billionaire, you can become a superhero. Well, what about this guy? I mean, I love Spider-Man. He's probably my favorite mainstream superhero, if you will. If I was going to go with, one of the popular guys. But what can you say? That's why popular superheroes are popular, because they're popular. Well, The Rod asked me on the comment section about Spider-Man making so much money from a toy perspective, noting he's just a poor college student or a teenager, he doesn't have gadgets or a fancy vehicle or a secret lair, unless, of course, you're in Spider-Man and his amazing friends, in which case he has the best secret lair. Okay, so what is it about it? What's with the wall crawler? What's with the web spinner? Why does he not only make such good toys, but he's so aspirational for kids? But he's just a guy, right? He's just like a guy in a suit. I mean, yes, he has superpowers and all that, but yeah, he doesn't have a Batwing or a Batmobile or a Batcave or Bat stuff. Occasionally he does change his costume, which of course is good for toy sales, especially when you can take the same existing tool or toy mold, and repaint it in another color and sell it again to try to make up for the capital investment. But yeah, when it comes down to it, Spider-Man's a man. I mean, yes, he has powers, and with great powers comes great toy marketing. But the answer is really simple, and it kind of comes down to this right here. Spider-Man falling through New York, fearless and happy. That is the ultimate fantasy. I mean, obviously every child has their own fantasy of, some have sports fantasies, some have pirate fantasies, but the idea that a simple accident, kids get into accidents all the time. If you have kids, you probably are well aware of this. So the idea that, a simple accident could suddenly cause your blood to become alive with radioactive spider powers, or however it works. I mean, yes, spiders are an inherently scary thing to children, but the idea of an accident with a spider that could benefit you, and then suddenly you can basically, not fly, but essentially swing and soar your way through any environment through one little, tough it up accident. Obviously, in the real world, getting bitten by a radioactive spider is not exactly going to be a benefit to you long term. But in fantasy world, what a fantasy this is. And just look at the way kids act and behave. What child, especially boy children, don't love to climb walls and surmount obstacles? Boys' and girls' brains function very differently, especially when they're young. And gymnastics is great for kids, both males, females, boys, girls, regardless. But for boys, in particular, it's a great way to sort of get out that natural aggression. Boys have more aggression. That's why boys have aggressive play versus girls have nurturing play. And not that girls don't. I mean, girls love gym. I mean, my daughter is she is a gymnast. She does competitive gym. But For boys, it's much more about sort of the adventure. Gym is less about competition and more about just getting out there and climbing and swinging. And if you don't go to gym class, you're going to turn your backyard into your local gym. And this is sort of the inherent, what I would call Tarzan fantasy. Boys as a sort of overarching, aggressive behavior, child play, they like to swing. It gets out energy. It makes a feeling of accomplishment, a feeling of ownership. If they can swing from one thing to another, it is an incredibly aspirational activity. And that's why you see kids climbing trees and swinging constantly, from banisters, from anything they can get their hands on. It's an inherent thing boys want to do because it makes them feel accomplished. Now, for Spider-Man, he doesn't just swing, but he can climb, and he can climb a flat surface, a wall. Now, this is such a huge fantasy for children, and again, especially boy children. Not just swinging, but boys, if you have boys or have nephews, you know that they love to climb. Trees, stairwells, ladders, pretty easy. A flat surface? Yeah, not so much. So Spider-Man essentially represents the ultimate accomplishment of being able to wall crawl, something that you would aspire to. You love to climb, but you can only do it if there's branches. Spider-Man don't need no branches. All right, but what about the mystery of who Spider-Man is? That's a big thing too. Sure, Batman's got his cape and cowl, but Spider-Man is completely covered, meaning anyone can be Spider-Man under there. Batman is clearly Caucasian, right? Well, Spider-Man is completely masked from head to toe. He's literally wearing like pajamas, like a onesie. I mean, doesn't Tony Stark call him like underoos? Yeah, exactly. For those of you who remember underoos. God, I loved underoos. All right. So the idea of being behind the mask, being Spider-Man, and Marvel has done a very good job of doing things like introducing Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy as different aspirational characters under the mask. Obviously, children have different cognitive understandings of what masks are, especially after the last few years. Oh, I hope children can get their sanity back. They were hurt so much in this. All right, it's not the point. The point is they also have positive connotation for masks, and that's when masks allow them to hide their identity and become someone else. By covering their face, which is the main projection of their personality, well, once you do this, you are in a fantasy world and you could do anything. Without the mask, you are just yourself. So as soon as that mask covers you and you're completely encased inside of it, it's like being taken off to this fantasy world. And a fantasy world where nobody knows who you are. With other superheroes, it's sort of clear, like, yeah, Hawkeye, those glasses aren't hiding anything. But with Spider-Man, could be anybody under there. And it could be you, and that's a big part of it. And a you that gets to now climb and swing and jump. All things that kids inherently want to do. And the idea that anybody could be Spider-Man. All you have to do is get bitten by that radioactive spider. I mean, with Batman, you have to train yourself. With Spider-Man, there's no cost. You just have to get bitten. One bite, and you're done. You don't have to spend years improving yourself or constantly fixing the Batmobile. It's sort of a one shot. You go to the doctor, you come back, and you're Spider-Man. Now, you might say, well, what about Superman, right? I mean, he can fly, and he's super strong and invulnerable, and he has those red eye-beamy things. Well, yes, Superman represents the height of the kind of I'm going to stand up to bullies fantasy, and that's really where it came from, being invented by Jewish immigrants who came over from Europe and needed a way to stand up to their new environment in America. Well, speaking of Jewish immigrants, no pun intended, Superman has birthright. That meaning he got his superpowers from birth. He was born with them. Batman trained. Superman got them because he's an alien. So you have to be born on an alien planet and then rocketed to Earth in order to be Superman. It's a little bit more complicated. I mean, it doesn't sound complicated, but for a child, it is. Superman, Harry Potter, Anakin Skywalker, the whole chosen one. They're destined to be a savior, if you will. And their powers come from being born with them. And while this is an absolute fantasy, it requires that step, and it requires something you have no control over, how you're born, who you are, who your parents are, what planet you're from. It's all part of, you have absolutely no control over that. With Batman, you could train yourself. But with Spider-Man, well, hey, walk into the, wrong lab, or maybe you should say right lab at the right time, at the right place. Suddenly, you could do everything little boys want to do, all from a simple accident. And kids get that. Kids can relate to accidents. So that's what makes Spider-Man so aspirational. And from a toy perspective, hey, anytime you can make a toy swing, shoot, and climb, those are basic action features. I hope this video clarified the coolness of Spider-Man and why he appeals to kids, adults, and retailers. Let me know what you think. Share this video. It's the best way to show support for this channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.